Well, Caitlin Clark is, let's be completely real, like, when people are talking about these CBA negotiations and everyone's saying the most important players are the people that are on the committee, let's be completely real. The most important player in CBA...
Angel Reese added another crucial layer to this picture. This week, she wasn't talking about hopes or aspirations. She wasn't speaking hypothetically. She was discussing playoff goals as if the calendar is already finalized. That language choice matters. Reese and Clark are the two most commercially impactful players in women's basketball right now. They move ratings. They sell tickets. They drive endorsement deals that reach 8 figures. When those two players speak with confidence about the future while others are warning about chaos, you should trust the signal, not the noise. The media wants attention. Strike narratives generate clicks. A 97% strike authorization vote sounds dramatic. It sounds like impending conflict. But drama doesn't equal reality. Players understand the difference between authorization and action. The public often doesn't. The stars do. If Clark and Reese believed there was a genuine risk of losing a season, their messaging would be defensive. It would be cautious. It would be vague. Instead, they're planning. That tells you exactly where negotiations are trending. The league cannot afford to lose momentum at the peak of visibility. Sponsors cannot afford disruption when they're actively investing in growth. Networks cannot afford empty programming slots when women's basketball is finally delivering consistent audiences. The stars know this, and their confidence reflects it.
I don't even know exactly who this is. To be honest, they said their dog was named CC after Caitlin Clark. Caitlin's response: both are welcome courtside this year. That's one of those things. And by the way, like, people like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese tend to be calculated in quite a lot of things they say. When it comes to, especially more recently with Angel Reese. Angel Reese was not, but she has been in the last 12 months.
Strike authorization is not a declaration of intent. It is leverage, nothing more, nothing less. A 97% vote doesn't mean 97% of players want to stop playing. It means they understand how collective bargaining works. Without the threat of a strike, players would receive incremental improvements. With it, they're negotiating transformational change. We're talking about potential pay increases in the range of 600 to 700%. That kind of leverage only exists when unity is visible. Voting yes is not aggression. It's strategy. Even players who believe the current offer is reasonable vote yes because breaking ranks weakens everyone. That's basic union logic. And the players with the most to lose, the ones with massive endorsement deals, are clearly not concerned. They're moving forward, planning seasons, speaking in futures, not hypotheticals. That tells you everything. Caitlin Clark will not allow a season to disappear, not because of ego, but because of economics. The rumored Super Bowl commercial revealing her signature shoe is reportedly tied to a $7 million advertising slot. That kind of investment is not speculative. It is calculated. You do not spend that money to promote an athlete who might not play. And if USA Basketball were to exclude Clark from training camp, the consequences wouldn't be symbolic. They'd be financial. Nike's involvement depends on exposure, visibility, and continuity. Clark's value transcends the court. She brings new audiences. She changes viewing habits. She makes the WNBA something people plan around, not stumble upon. Sponsors know this. The league knows this. The union knows this.
You've got Caitlin Clark saying this, and obviously Angel Reese during the week was talking about her biggest goals, and she was talking about playing in the playoffs. So you've got the two most important players in league negotiations, talking as if it's a guarantee that it happens. They're talking as if it's a guarantee, and that's one of those things that I don't think people really are like taking into account, is that it really does matter when you've got these players talking like it's completely.
That social media interaction wasn't random, and anyone who still believes Caitlin Clark posts casually is completely misunderstanding her current position in the sports ecosystem. Every message she sends now exists on multiple levels. It is consumed by fans, dissected by media outlets, evaluated by sponsors, and quietly monitored by league executives. She knows this, and she adjusts accordingly. So when someone names their dog Cece and Clark responds with both are welcome courtside this year, that is not idle friendliness. That is strategic language. She did not say hopefully. She did not say if. She did not hedge. She spoke as if the upcoming season is guaranteed. The confidence embedded in that phrasing is the real story. Athletes in unstable league environments are typically cautious with language. They avoid commitments. They soften expectations. Clark did the opposite. She framed next season as a certainty, not a possibility. That distinction matters, especially when the media narrative is dominated by speculation about strikes, cancellations, and labor disruptions. And she isn't acting alone. Her behavior aligns with broader signals coming from other key players. This isn't coincidence. High-value athletes communicate indirectly because direct statements can escalate tensions unnecessarily. Subtlety is safer and often more effective. Clark understands the optics. She understands timing. She understands that her words can either fuel panic or calm it. And she chose calm. That alone suggests she believes the outcome is already leaning in the player's favor. Because if there were genuine risk of a lost season, she would not speak this confidently. The cost of being wrong would be enormous. This is how power communicates when it doesn't need to prove itself. Not through declarations, but through assumptions. When the most visible player in the league behaves as though the future is settled, it tells you negotiations are far more advanced than headlines suggest. Silence would have been safer. Optimism would have been suspicious. Certainty is deliberate.
They imagine your legacy being destroying, literally destroying the sport that you made a career on. Like if the WNBA, like if the PA calls a strike and people are like, oh, 97% of the players like voted voted for a strike. No, they didn't. 97% of the players basically said they trust the CBA. They trust the CBA. Or say not trust CBA, they trust the PA. That if they're okay to strike if nothing happens.
The loudest voices in these negotiations are not coming from press conferences, union statements, or leaked headlines. They're coming from silence, confidence, and assumption. The most powerful figure shaping the future of the WNBA's labor talks isn't seated at the bargaining table, isn't listed on any committee, and isn't issuing demands. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to negotiate directly because the entire structure of the league's future already bends around her presence. She is not influencing the process from the inside. She is defining the stakes from the outside. What Clark said this week mattered not because it was dramatic, but because it was calm. She spoke about the upcoming season as if its existence was guaranteed. No qualifiers, no hedging, no acknowledgement of uncertainty. That alone cuts through weeks of speculation about strikes and canceled seasons. Athletes who believe disruption is coming do not speak this way. They protect themselves with vague language. Clark did the opposite, signaling confidence that the situation is already under control. That same confidence is showing up elsewhere. Angel Reese has been discussing postseason goals as if the schedule is already finalized. Not potential playoff runs. Not hypothetical success. Real defined expectations. These are the two players driving the league's current visibility. They generate ratings, sell tickets, and attract the sponsorship money that keeps the league expanding. When those players act as though stability is a given, it's because they know where the leverage actually lies. The media focus on a 97% strike authorization vote misses the point. That vote is not a declaration of intent. It's a tool. Strike authorization exists to create leverage, not to guarantee action. Players understand this. Voting yes doesn't mean they want to stop playing. It means they understand how negotiations work. Without the threat of a strike, the players get minor concessions. With it, they're negotiating structural change, including massive salary growth. Unity strengthens the bargaining position, and breaking ranks weakens everyone. Meanwhile, the most important indicator isn't voting percentages or headlines. It's money. You don't reserve a Super Bowl advertising slot worth millions to promote a player who might not play. You don't build long-term endorsement strategies around uncertainty. Sponsors, networks, and advertisers operate on timelines that assume continuity. And Caitlin Clark sits at the center of that economic ecosystem. Her value now extends far beyond basketball performance. She brings new audiences into the sport. She changes viewing habits. She makes the WNBA appointment television instead of background noise. The league cannot afford to interrupt that momentum at the exact moment it has captured mainstream attention. Everyone involved understands this, even if they avoid saying it publicly. That's why this negotiation ends one way. Not because of threats or public pressure, but because the league's future growth depends on stability, and stability depends on its most valuable players continuing forward. The power in this situation isn't loud. It's structural, and it's already decided the outcome.
When it comes down to it, the players that really matter are talking about it as if there's going to be a season. And that is really important. Like, again, people aren't necessarily like taking into account how important it is. The likes of a Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese talking as if it's a guarantee, how important that is. Because at the end of the day, These are players that Nike, Reebok, these big brands are kind of like Nike are putting a lot of stock in Caitlin Clark. Like there's a lot going into Caitlin Clark. I think this Team USA camp, and imagine if Team USA fuck about and don't pick Caitlin Clark. Nike on the spot would probably just drop them.
Pay close attention to what was just admitted, even if it sounded casual on the surface. The most influential figure in the current CBA negotiations isn't sitting on the bargaining committee. She isn't physically present at the table. She isn't one of the names listed in official union leadership. Yet she holds more leverage than anyone involved in the discussion. Caitlin Clark does not need a chair in that room because the entire conversation revolves around her existence. She is not a participant in the process. She is the foundation that gives the process its urgency. What Clark said this week made that unmistakably clear. It wasn't confrontational. It wasn't dramatic, but it was decisive. Her tone suggested certainty, not concern. She spoke like someone who already understands how this negotiation ends. That confidence matters more than any press release issued by the league or the Players Association. When the most economically valuable player in the sport speaks, as though continuity is assumed, it sends a message far louder than formal statements about labor disputes. Historically, labor negotiations in sports are driven by leverage. Leverage doesn't come from votes alone. It comes from market reality. And right now, the market reality of the WNBA is inseparable from Caitlin Clark. Television ratings spike when she plays. Ticket prices surge in arenas she visits. Merchandise sales, social engagement, and sponsorship visibility all orbit her presence. Every stakeholder understands this, even if they're reluctant to say publicly. That's why Clark's words carry disproportionate weight. She doesn't need to threaten a strike or issue ultimatums. Her value already dictates the outcome. A league preparing to renegotiate its economic structure cannot afford instability during the exact moment it has captured mainstream attention. Clark represents momentum. Interrupting that momentum would be catastrophic, not just financially, but culturally. This is why her absence from a negotiating table is irrelevant. Negotiations aren't decided by who speaks the loudest in the room. They're decided by who the room is afraid of losing. And right now, no player embodies that fear more clearly. Clark understands this dynamic instinctively. She doesn't posture. She doesn't over-explain. She simply speaks like someone who knows the league cannot move forward without her. That's power. Quiet, structural, unavoidable power. And it's already shaping the outcome.